Why she fell in love with you. Despite a massive age difference, there's a strange moment that happens when a woman starts caring about a man who is much older than she is. She may notice the difference. Of course she does. She knows what people might think. She knows someone may raise an eyebrow when they walk into a room together. She may even have questioned herself in the beginning. And yet, she keeps looking at him. She keeps finding reasons to stay near him. She remembers little things he said weeks ago. She notices when his mood changes. She becomes curious about the parts of his life he rarely talks about. And eventually, she may realize something that scares her a little. I didn't plan to fall for him. Maybe you're watching this because you've already noticed it. Maybe there's a woman in your life who is younger than you by 10, 20, 30 years or more, and you've been trying to understand what could possibly be happening inside her. Because you don't want to fool yourself. You don't want to mistake kindness for attraction. You don't want to create a story in your head simply because you want it to be true. But something feels different. The way she looks at you feels different. And if you've been quietly wondering how a woman could develop genuine feelings for a man despite such a massive age difference, stay with me. Because age can influence attraction. But it doesn't always explain attachment. And there's one psychological detail about emotional connection that many people completely overlook. Before we get there, if these conversations help you understand relationships in a deeper way, you can subscribe. Not because you need another dating rule to follow, but because sometimes understanding what is happening inside another person changes the way you understand yourself. Now, picture something simple. You're sitting across from her somewhere ordinary. Maybe it's a coffee shop. Maybe you're talking after work. Maybe you're sitting in a car and neither of you is in a hurry to leave. She asks you about something from your past. You answer briefly. She asks another question. You laugh and say, "That's a long story." And instead of changing the subject, she says, "I'd actually like to hear it." That little sentence can mean more than it appears to, because sometimes attraction isn't created by someone being impressive. It's created by someone feeling safe enough to become curious. She may be drawn to the way you listen without constantly trying to prove yourself. She may notice that you don't panic when there's silence. You don't need every conversation to become exciting. You don't seem desperate for her approval. And perhaps most importantly, you don't treat her like a younger woman who needs to be impressed. You treat her like a person. That distinction can be powerful. Not because every younger woman wants an older man, she doesn't. And age gap relationships can carry very real complications, different life stages, expectations, family reactions, and questions about the future. But when two adults genuinely connect, attraction can sometimes grow around qualities that have very little to do with the number on a birth certificate. She may experience something around you that she hasn't experienced with people closer to her age. Not necessarily excitement, something quieter, a sense that she doesn't have to perform. She can say something awkward without being mocked. She can disagree without the entire conversation turning into a competition. She can be uncertain without you immediately trying to fix her. And perhaps she starts associating your presence with a feeling she didn't realize she was looking for. That is where things become complicated. Because once a person begins feeling emotionally understood by someone, the mind can start giving that person a significance that wasn't there at the beginning. Suddenly, she remembers your voice, a particular joke, the way you looked at her when she was talking. A conversation that seemed ordinary to you may have stayed with her all night, and you might never know. You might think nothing happened, while somewhere inside her, something quietly moved. But there's an even deeper reason this can happen. And it has less to do with your age than you probably think. Because sometimes the very difference you believe should make you less attractive is the difference that makes her feel something she can't easily explain. What makes this complicated is that attraction doesn't always begin with a conscious decision. She may never sit down and think, "I want an older man." That's usually not how people experience feelings. Instead, she notices one small thing, then another, and another. Maybe she's had a difficult day, and you don't immediately tell her what she should do. You simply listen. She talks for 10 minutes. You don't interrupt. When she finally stops, you say something simple like, "That sounds exhausting." And strangely, that sentence stays with her. Because you didn't try to win the conversation, you understood it. There's a difference. A person can be surrounded by people and still feel strangely unseen. And sometimes the person who notices them most clearly becomes emotionally important before they even realize it's happening. Think about the last time she opened up to you. Maybe she told you something she doesn't usually tell people. Maybe she admitted she was scared about her future. Maybe she talked about a relationship that hurt her. Maybe she told you about something embarrassing from her childhood and then immediately laughed it off. You probably noticed the words. But did you notice what happened afterward? Did she become quieter? Did she look at you to see how you would react? Did she seem almost relieved when you didn't judge her? Those moments can matter, not because they prove she's in love. They don't. Human behavior isn't that simple, but emotional openness can create closeness, especially when someone feels accepted rather than evaluated. And this is where your age may actually become less important than you imagined, because perhaps she isn't experiencing you as a man 25 years older. Perhaps she's experiencing you as the man who makes her feel calm, the man whose opinion she respects, the man she can sit beside without constantly checking herself. That's very different. Now imagine another scene. You're walking together. She makes a joke. You laugh. Then there's silence. A few seconds. Neither of you rushes to fill it. She looks over at you. You look back. And then she looks away. Nothing dramatic happened. No confession. No romantic music. No obvious declaration. Yet she thinks about that moment later. Why? Because emotional attraction often lives in tiny experiences that don't look important from the outside. A glance, a pause, a feeling of being remembered, the way someone says your name, the sense that another person notices what you don't say. And sometimes, when a woman becomes attached to an older man, what pulls her closer isn't simply his experience. It's what that experience communicates. Steadiness, perspective, patience. A sense that every disagreement doesn't have to become a crisis. But be careful here. Maturity isn't automatically tied to age. There are young people who are remarkably emotionally grounded, and there are older people who haven't learnt how to communicate at all. So if she feels drawn to you, it may not be because you're older, it may be because of who you've become. That's a very different compliment. She's not necessarily attracted to the years you've lived. She may be attracted to what those years have done to you, the patience you developed after being disappointed, the confidence you gained after realizing you don't have to impress everyone, the ability to sit with uncertainty without immediately running from it, and perhaps the most unexpected part, she may feel safer around a man who no longer needs to prove that he's the strongest person in the room, because confidence can become quieter with age. You don't always need the last word. You don't have to turn every disagreement into a contest. You can let her have her opinion. You can let her walk away from a conversation without chasing her down. You can say, "I understand," without needing to add, "But you're wrong." Those things may seem ordinary to you. To her, they might not be. And then something subtle can happen. She begins bringing more of herself into your presence. She tells you things sooner. She seeks your opinion. She notices when you're absent. She sends a message that doesn't really need to be sent. And perhaps you start noticing something in yourself too. You start waiting for her messages. You start wondering what she's thinking. You start imagining conversations that haven't happened yet. That's when the age difference can suddenly feel very real. Because now there are questions neither of you can avoid forever. What does she actually want? What happens when other people notice? What if her feelings change? What if yours become deeper? And underneath all of those questions is one that can be harder for a man to admit. What if she loves the version of me she sees now? But one day she realizes the age difference is bigger than the feelings. That fear can quietly change the way you behave around her. And if you felt yourself becoming more careful, more guarded, even slightly distant because you don't want to get hurt, she may be noticing that distance too. She may be wondering why the man who once made her feel understood suddenly seems afraid to let her get any closer. And that misunderstanding can become the beginning of something neither of you intended. Sometimes the most confusing part of falling for someone is not the feeling itself. It's the moment you realize the other person might be feeling it too. Because now there is something to lose. You may have noticed that she behaves differently around you. She remembers details you barely remember saying. She finds small reasons to continue conversations. She asks about your plans. Maybe she teases you in a way she doesn't tease other people. Maybe she becomes unusually quiet when another woman enters the conversation. Maybe she looks at you, realizes you've noticed, and suddenly becomes interested in her phone. And you start wondering, am I imagining this? That question can keep a man awake much longer than he'd ever admit. You replay conversations. You examine her messages. You remember the exact expression on her face. You think about the moment she touched your arm. Then you tell yourself you're reading too much into it. Then you remember something else, and you're back where you started. But there is something worth understanding here. When emotional attraction develops, people don't always become more obvious. Sometimes they become more conflicted. She may genuinely care about you while simultaneously questioning whether she should. She may think about the age difference more than you realize. She might wonder what her friends would say, what her family would think, whether your lives are moving in compatible directions, whether the future would become difficult. And yet, she may still find herself wanting to see you. That's the strange part about human attachment. Knowing something is complicated doesn't necessarily make the feeling disappear. You can understand every reason something might not work and still miss someone when they're gone. You can tell yourself to be sensible and still look at your phone when a certain person's name appears. You can decide you're going to create distance and then feel disappointed when they actually give you that distance. Perhaps you've seen something like this with her. She pulls back. You respect it. You stop initiating. And then, a few days later, she appears again. A casual message. A question she could have asked anyone else. A little joke. Something harmless. Except it doesn't feel harmless to you. You wonder why she came back. Maybe she simply wanted to talk. Maybe she missed the connection. Maybe she was testing her own feelings. There are several possibilities, and this is where you have to resist the temptation to turn every behavior into proof. Psychology isn't a mind-reading machine. One message doesn't establish love. One look doesn't establish attraction. One moment of jealousy doesn't tell you what someone wants, but patterns can tell you more than isolated moments, especially when the pattern is emotional consistency. Does she make space for you? Does she show genuine curiosity about your inner world? Does she respect your boundaries? Does she seem comfortable being emotionally honest with you? Does she seek connection even when there is nothing obvious to gain? Those questions matter more than trying to decode every tiny gesture, because real affection usually becomes visible through investment. Not performance, not games, investment. She gives time, she remembers, she listens. She allows you to know parts of her that aren't presented to everyone. And sometimes, without realizing it, she begins creating a little emotional world that includes you. That's when the age difference can start feeling almost surreal. You might be sitting across from her thinking, how did we get here? Because perhaps you never expected this. Maybe you had already convinced yourself that this stage of your life was supposed to be quieter. Maybe you thought romance belonged to an earlier version of you. Maybe you'd become comfortable with your routines, your work, your friends, your solitude. And then she arrived. Not necessarily dramatically. Maybe she just started talking to you. And somehow, months later, you're thinking about her before you fall asleep. That's when something deeper can happen inside a man. He may begin questioning whether he is actually worthy of the attention he's receiving. Not because she has told him he isn't, but because the age gap makes his insecurities louder. He starts thinking about his appearance, his energy, his future, the years between them. He may compare himself to younger men without ever telling her. And if she notices that insecurity, she may not understand where it's coming from. She may simply feel him becoming less open, less spontaneous, more cautious, which creates an unusual emotional loop. He distances himself because he fears losing her. She senses the distance and wonders if he doesn't want her. She pulls back to protect herself. He sees her pulling back and thinks, I knew this would happen. And suddenly, two people who may genuinely care about each other are responding to fears neither has actually spoken aloud. But there is one thing that can interrupt that entire cycle. And strangely enough, it has almost nothing to do with convincing her that the age difference doesn't matter. It begins when you stop trying to convince yourself that it doesn't matter either. You don't have to pretend the age difference isn't there. In fact, pretending can sometimes make the connection harder, because when you care about someone, honesty becomes more important than reassurance. Maybe you've looked at her and thought, she could be with someone younger. You probably wouldn't say that out loud. You might even laugh if someone suggested you were insecure. But alone, at night, it's different. You wonder whether she's going to wake up one morning and suddenly see the number instead of the man. You wonder whether she'll eventually want a life that moves at a different pace. You wonder whether the people around her will slowly convince her that what she feels isn't sensible. Those fears aren't proof that the relationship is wrong. They're simply questions that deserve honesty. And here's something subtle. A woman who genuinely cares about you doesn't necessarily need you to eliminate every obstacle. She may need to know that you can look directly at the obstacle without becoming terrified by it. There's a difference between saying, age doesn't matter, and saying, yes, we're at different stages of life. We should talk honestly about what that means. The second response is much more emotionally grounded, because mature connection isn't built by pretending difficult things don't exist. It's built by being able to discuss difficult things without immediately destroying the connection. Imagine she tells you one evening, I've thought about our age difference. Your stomach drops. You suddenly become hyper-aware of every word. You may want to say, then maybe this is a bad idea, just to protect yourself. But instead, you breathe and you ask, what have you been thinking about? That question changes the atmosphere. Now she doesn't have to defend herself. She can tell you what she's actually afraid of. Maybe she worries about how her family will react. Maybe she worries about your different stages of life. Maybe she worries about being judged. Maybe she isn't even sure what she feels yet. And maybe, after a long silence, she says something you weren't expecting. I just know I feel different when I'm with you. That sentence doesn't solve everything. It isn't a guarantee, but it's honest. And sometimes honesty creates more intimacy than reassurance ever could. Because there is another reason a woman may fall deeply for an older man. She may feel that he has a relationship with himself that she finds compelling. Not perfection, not some fantasy of endless confidence, something more ordinary. He knows what he likes, he knows what he doesn't. He doesn't need everyone to approve of him. He has survived disappointment. He's been embarrassed. He's lost people. He's made decisions he wouldn't make again. And perhaps he doesn't hide those things. He can tell a story about a mistake without turning it into a performance. He can admit, I handled that badly. That kind of emotional ownership can be deeply attractive. Again, not because older men automatically possess it, they don't. But when someone has developed it, regardless of age, other people can feel the difference. You feel it when you're around someone who isn't constantly protecting an image. You don't have to guess which version of them will appear when something goes wrong. And maybe that's what she has been responding to. Not your age, not your status, not some fantasy, your emotional presence, the way you remain yourself around her. But there is another side to this. Sometimes an age gap relationship feels powerful because it exposes parts of both people that were previously hidden. She may discover that she wants stability more than excitement. You may discover that you still want tenderness more than you admitted. She may realize that being understood matters more than impressing people. You may realize that being desired again has awakened something you thought had gone quiet. And that can be beautiful, but it can also be frightening. Because when someone reaches a part of you that you had stopped visiting, you become vulnerable, you start caring, and caring gives the other person the ability to hurt you. That is why some men suddenly become colder when the relationship starts feeling real. Not because they stopped caring, sometimes because they started caring too much. They stop texting first. They become deliberately casual. They say, I'm not looking for anything serious, when what they really mean is, I'm terrified of wanting something I might not be able to keep. And she may hear the first sentence. She won't automatically hear the second. That's where two people can lose something genuine. Not because there was no love, because fear spoke first. And if she has already crossed that emotional distance toward you, there's a question she may eventually be asking herself in private. Does he actually believe I could choose him? Because sometimes the woman isn't waiting for you to prove that you're attractive. She's waiting to see whether you believe her feelings are real.